10 minutes and it drops your stress levels, it drops cortisol levels in your body, but it also is helping rewire your brain. It activates that part of your brain where that controls your breathing and your heart rate and things you don't have to think about, breaks you out of that cycle and puts you back into this very calm, almost dissociated state of like just being.
What is forest bathing? Sounds scandalous.
Walking up to a tree and looking at it and like running your hand on the bark and actually feeling the texture of the bark on your skin intentionally. There's a smell that the leaves produce as they're, kind of turning back into soil, because that's ultimately what they do. They degrade to the point that they become dirt again. And that smell is very specific to being in the woods. So locking all of that in. And so nature is an ecosystem. Everything is tied together, whether it's through the roots of trees or through like symbiotic relationships with each other. That led me to the NASDAQ group, to the Entrepreneurial Center, and being able to go through their program and now partner with them. Be able to see myself 7 stories tall in the center of New York City was so validating.
This podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. It is not a substitute for medical, financial, legal, or professional advice. Views expressed are personal and may not reflect any organization.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to MindSattva, practical wisdom for modern life. This is where we get together and understand how we can learn from ancient wisdom and apply it in today's environment. And where do we take it from here? It gives me great pleasure to invite Ms. Sheryl Barbosa today. Sheryl is a great friend, and I know her through our speaking network. Ms. Sheryl Barbosa is an environmental scientist, a keynote speaker, and a space strategist with a deep belief that nature holds the answers to our most urgent challenges. With over 20 years of experience spanning policy, innovation, sustainability, she helps leaders across industries rediscover their sense of purpose and help build a planet that people can thrive in, and the planet will also thrive. As a keynote speaker, I have seen her, in our speaking careers. She is phenomenal. She lets you understand what exactly is the heart of the matter and gives you solutions. So it's amazing to have you here today, Sheryl, and good to see you. Let's get to your favorite topic. Let's talk about nature. And how did you rediscover nature or discover nature in this process? And what you mainly talk about is our relationship with nature. How did you get there? What should we know? What is like the Cliff Notes version and also the beautiful parts of it?
Well, I think just taking those moments, and I started off with like small bite-sized moments, because that's at the time what I felt like I could fit. And that's honestly all it needs to be. The science nerd in me, the studies they've done, it's as little as like 10 minutes outside. And it doesn't mean you have to go to the park or in the woods. Like, yes, being outside and in grass or being able to take a walk out in nature is even more beneficial, but that's not always accessible for everybody. So even just whether you live in an urban area or just, wherever you're at, you can't quite get away and go run away into the woods somewhere. I think many of us want to, but it's not always feasible. But even just going outside and sitting outside with, feeling the weather on your skin, feeling the sun or the rain, if it's cold, feeling that on your skin. And even just as little as being near a tree, especially in those urban areas, it's 10 minutes and it drops your stress levels. It drops cortisol levels in your body, but it also is helping rewire your brain too. So it's helping that slow down without you even you don't have to do anything. There's no trying involved. There's no need to control anything or have to plan, or you just go sit and be. And it's actually helping reprogram. It makes you more creative. It helps, they call it your default mode network, which is that part of your brain that allows you to, it's almost, I think some people call it like that, the reptilian part of your brain where that controls your breathing and your heart rate and things you don't have to think about. They just happen. It activates that part of your brain. So it gets you out of like the constant overthinking and that part, the front of your brain that's constantly like a computer background program that's running where it's just going and going and going and going. It breaks you out of that cycle and puts you back into this very calm, almost dissociated state of like just being. And that helps your physical body, your mental state so much more. And so I started with that. And the more I did that and the more it helped, the more I was able to start to figure out how to weave longer visits, taking the dogs for a walk for 20 minutes, and slowly starting to unravel the knot that I had tied, almost like a balled up set of Christmas lights. You're looking at them and you're like, I don't know how I'm going to get this untangled. And then slowly but surely you start pulling at the strings and loosening the knots until eventually all of the strands of lights are laying on the floor in strips, completely untangled. And then you get to test them to see if they still work. So being able to do that and that helped immensely, because then I was able to set more intentionality in my day, and that led to other deeper things, which for me was taking intentional trips, long weekends or vacation, where it was more focused on either being out in nature or going on like a yoga retreat or things of that nature that helped me continue to deepen those practices and that connection with nature. And that truly is what helped me heal, because it not only did it have the physical benefits, but also helped me realize I don't need to be going at 100 miles an hour constantly. And juggling all those balls. It's okay if I put a lot of that down. Either it wasn't a priority in the first place, it's not necessary, I can ask somebody to help me take care of it, or it'll just get taken care of on its own. And that was a part of that healing journey and that reset, if you will, from where I was at and getting off that moving train back to standing still on that platform.
So Cheryl, you recovered from this big episode and then you came home, you started your recovery process. Like, what led you to interacting with nature in this way? Was it a book? Was it something you heard? Was it a new principle that you read about? Like, say from the hospital to recovering at home, a couple of months. Like, sorry, I'm a doctor, so I kind of think in that manner, like what is acute, what happens in the first 3 weeks, then 6 weeks, then 12 weeks. So sorry, it's kind of like unfortunately or fortunately, that's my training. So that's how I think. And I'm like, wait a minute, you're not telling me something that happened 2 years later. Like I'm missing the whole story in between. That's kind of my brain doing its own neurodivergent thing or whatever that is, or process oriented thing.
So yeah, the quick timeline is, I was in the hospital talking to the doctors. I knew that this was all stress related. So I knew that pace, the amount of to-dos on my list, all that stuff, like I knew the stress was coming from that need to be productive, right? So I knew that I had to stop, I had to slow down. And I turned to nature mainly because, I grew up doing a lot of being outside, riding horses since I was 9 years old. And so I knew how I felt when I'm outside. I knew I felt better. I knew it helped. I knew I felt calmer or, more at ease, and that I wasn't having that anxiety or those feelings of anxiety. So it was truly, born out of just my desire. I'm like, I need to feel better. And this helps me slow down and feel better. So I'm going to do that. And I would do like the easy ones were like, take the dogs for a walk, even just go sit outside at lunchtime, in the sun, eating lunch outside, trying to get outside or incorporate being outside as much as possible. So if the weather's nice enough, like grabbing my laptop and working outside on my, on a porch or a deck or at a cafe or wherever, just simple things like that.
It was an internal thing, not an external thing, kind of. You just got called to do that.
Yes. And then after I was already doing it and mentioning it to the doctors and follow-up appointments or researching it on my own, going down those rabbit holes, I learned the benefits of it. And, and they were like, I got the confirmation and the validation that what I was doing was right, was correct. And then I started to just get nerdy and figure out like, well, what is this actually doing for me? You know, and then of course we're all on social media sometimes. And so the algorithm loves to feed you stuff. That's exactly what you're looking for. So it started giving, it helped me go down that rabbit hole further and learn more and more about that and learn different techniques like forest bathing, things like that. And why they work, why they're important, all the nerdy science stuff about it as well.
What is forest bathing? Sounds scandalous.
So it's definitely not scandalous. I mean, unless people do want to get naked in the woods, but I wouldn't suggest it. But typically what it is being intentional. So going out with forest bathing specifically, you do want to be near trees, kind of out in the woods, in nature. And when you're out there, you're being very intentional with every sense of your body. Touch, maybe not taste because you shouldn't be licking things, but sense of smell, sense of sight, sense of touch, your hearing. So it could be as simple as walking up to a tree and looking at it and like running your hand on the bark and actually feeling the texture of the bark on your skin intentionally, or looking up and seeing kind of how the light plays in, with the leaves. And in that moment, then maybe closing your eyes and hearing the sounds around you, smelling the smells around you, and like locking in that moment, that memory, using all of the senses. And because it's very similar to like right before it rains or after, that smell. There's that, I forget the term for it, but there's a term for that smell that everybody smells right before it's about to rain. And the same thing goes for, especially in the woods with trees that lose their leaves. There's a smell that the leaves produce as they're, kind of turning back into soil, because that's ultimately what they do. They degrade to the point that they become dirt again. And that smell is very specific to being in the woods. So locking all of that in, and then, as you move through the woods, bringing that with you along the way and feeling, if you feel called to take off your shoes, feeling the ground under your feet, just very, very much focusing on every sensation, like I said, except for maybe taste. Unless there's wild berries that you feel, you're familiar with, that you're okay with eating, nature. But otherwise, it's a very intentional movement. And some people tie in meditation. So there might be music you listen to, or some people go out in groups and somebody might have a guided meditation directing the group as you're moving through the woods, and making it a very intentional practice of being in that space in nature.
That just sounds so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Sheryl, can you tell me how your time with nature ties in with your Sustainable Cities Network and your work at NASDAQ? Like, how fancy can you get? You take nature all the way to being on NASDAQ.
Absolutely. So nature is an ecosystem. Everything is tied together, whether it's through the roots of trees or through like symbiotic relationships with each other. And we see that all the time. The biggest one is like bumblebees and flowers, right? And pollination. And so that got me thinking about connection in society, because we've all kind of become a little disconnected. Whatever the cause is, there's many. And that combined with some feedback from clients, from small businesses I work with, from large companies I work with, cities, and even just day-to-day people who, are looking to support small businesses or companies that are doing the right thing for the planet. And that's really how Sustain Cities Network was born. At the center of it is the small businesses, because they are the center of community in most neighborhoods. They're the center of a lot of our economy. I believe it's either between 96 and 99% of businesses in the US are small businesses. So the idea of how can we connect everybody, create this sense of community again, allow everybody to talk to each other, because that was the biggest hurdle. People who wanted to buy, couldn't find the businesses. Small businesses wanted to be able to support others and source from them, but they didn't have the tools to find each other. And the same thing, companies, large corporations are very disconnected from the communities they work in, so they couldn't figure that out. And then cities want to support those businesses because it's how they thrive as a city. So I was able to create this resource and directory that's searchable and allows everybody to find each other. And then on the back end, we have a lot of other fun little bits and pieces that provide metrics and reports and allow cities to gauge their health and economic growth, and allow these large companies to connect with these smaller businesses and support our local communities. And then being able to do that on a national level, everything's connected. So I live in Greenville, and if I can't find something I'm looking for, there might be somebody who makes that thing, maybe not here, but an hour away, or maybe they're further up the East Coast. So instead of having to go to Amazon or Walmart or big box stores, I can now find this stuff from somebody else who is in the US. So I don't have to worry about delays or shipping. And I get to support a small business that's owned by a real human being that cares about the planet. And that's the biggest thing, is all these organizations have to be green to some capacity, even if it's baby steps. And so that led me to the NASDAQ group, to the Entrepreneurial Center, and being able to go through their program and now partner with them to create this amazing platform that gets to connect everybody into one big ecosystem, much like nature.
So you took nature and you took it to NASDAQ, which houses the stock market for these technology companies. So you are combining these two approaches and taking it to the national center. And I think that's just beautiful. How was that experience? How was it seeing your picture up there on the NASDAQ screen?
It was surreal and very validating. That's for sure. Because sustainability, it's a tough road to travel, because there's a lot of education to get people to help understand. And it's still a question mark, I think. So that was the beauty of it, was what I'm doing, it also makes it super easy. That's our motto. We make being green the easy choice. And that was, be able to see myself 7 stories tall in the center of New York City was so validating. It was a beautiful moment, and I'm incredibly grateful for it.
It sounds like you had the force of Mother Nature behind you.
I hope so. I think so.
Wonderful. Sheryl, I'm so grateful that you took the time to speak with me today and for the listeners of this podcast. And I look forward to seeing the new heights that the Sustained Cities Network gets to.
Thank you. And thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it, and happy to come back on and just have this wonderful chat again and dive even further into, there's so many facets. So being able to continue that chat would be fantastic, but I appreciate the time today. So thank you.